Hello, everyone. Welcome to Into the Obscure. And with me tonight, as per usual, is Tressa.
Hello.
And I would introduce Kara,
Oh,
but right now we have our
that's the
guest
wrong
on.
person. Sorry, Tobias.
And there's Kara.
I was like, if it was gonna be our
I was just
guest, we
looking
have
at
two
me.
guests. At least put two on.
No, it was completely random. Like
Listen, I was just
that's
looking
gonna
at my
make things
picture.
hard.
I was like, it's fine. I can see me.
Yeah,
That's all that matters.
it took you a minute to notice that.
Yeah, you had to point it out.
I
Thank you.
did. Well,
Ooh.
unsurprisingly now, our guests tonight are Emily and Tobias Wayland. This is the second time they've been on the show, and the first one was so much fun and such a good show that not only did we re-air it a couple of weeks ago, but we also really wanted to get them back, especially during the season, because they have a new book that is the Yuletide Guide to High Strangeness. And that's exactly why I was going to read it off, so I didn't mess up the title.
Good.
There we go. I did good with words tonight.
You did.
I did. So, without further ado, let's please welcome Emily and Tobias Wayland.
Hello, everybody. Yay.
Hello.
Welcome back to the show, you guys. We're really excited about it. The first show that we did with you was our first show and was really fun. I know we enjoy talking to you, listening to you, hearing all of the things that you have to say. And you guys have a new book, which is
We do.
Yeah, which is an awesome book. I didn't read it all the way through, mostly because I wanted to hear everything from you guys, but I went through it, and there's some really cool, interesting stories in there that I hadn't heard about yet so far.
Like what, Jenny?
Oh, well, I would tell you, but I'm going to ask them in just a second. The first thing that I wanted to ask, because people report things to you of high strangeness and unusual things. And what is the most reported thing to you guys during this season?
I mean, everything's going to be slanted in favor of winged humanoids, like no matter what. Just
They're
because of how much work we've done with that particular phenomenon. But interestingly enough, I don't know that there is one phenomenon that is overrepresented this time of year. I think you get some of all of it. And if there is any particular subject that comes up, more often than others, it's probably more to do with some kind of internal bias than necessarily the actual numbers behind those reports. Just recently, I think what we've been receiving is more. Oh boy, I'm trying to think back to the last couple reports that have been sent in. There was a weird winged creature a guy took this video of down in Illinois, and somebody out in Missouri wanted to talk a bit about feeling this just sort of an eerie feeling near this sighting area that we had reported on previously. But just in terms of generalities, like I said, you get some of everything. I mean, um, ghosts, of course, have always been associated with this time of year pretty famously. But also UFOs. There's a good number of UFO reports, depending on where you are. Of course, it's the same with cryptids because it's starting to get cold out this time of year, and so if you're in the Midwest and you're not going outside as often, then of course you're less likely to see something like Bigfoot or a UFO. But if you live in a haunted house, well, then you're seeing more ghosts than ever because you're just at home all the time.
Stuck with them.
Right.
You mentioned UFOs. Now, there's something that you cover in the book that I was completely unaware of, is that the day after Christmas is when Whitley Strieber had his encounter, right?
It was his first remembered encounter. If you go back and read Communion, and yeah, that struck me too. Like I had read Communion, a million years ago, and we reread it a couple of years ago as part of like just a weird book club, and so it was kind of fresh on my mind when I was doing this research, and then as I was getting more into the Wild Hunt and the like Asgard's and all of that kind of stuff, it just kind of clicked with me one day, and I was like, wait a minute, didn't Whitley Strieber have his like first remembered encounter right around Christmas? And yeah, sure enough, it was like December 26th,
That's so
which
wild.
which is weird. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the significance is necessarily, but it was something of a synchronicity, I guess, if nothing else.
Can you go into the Wild Hunt a little bit? Because I'm not totally familiar. I'm not at all familiar with the whole idea of it.
Sure, sure. So the Wild Hunt actually has many different iterations, but essentially it is a legend that has arisen out of the Yuletide experience, like just the Germanic cultures that recognized that time of year as being special, and they would tell stories of most famously, really Odin leading this spectral hunt, and so he would lead the souls of fallen warriors on this hunt every year, and it was not something that you wanted to necessarily encounter. And so often the stories would go something like, well, if you hear the wind howling, that's the wild hunt, so don't go outside, because Odin was known to be capricious at best, and so he might deal, out weal or woe in roughly equal measure, depending on how he happened to judge you at that time. And there were a number of, as I mentioned, different iterations, and so you would find things like the Asgard's Ray, right, which literally translates as Asgard's Ride, and that ended up sort of evolving into different folk tales in and of itself. And so there's one version of that I found in historical document from right here, actually in Wisconsin, involving a story of this Asgard's Ray, which is basically just a weird fairy troupe. It really doesn't have anything to do with Odin or hunting. It's just these underground people that come to the surface every Christmas Eve and wreak havoc. And that actually put me, yeah, which is weird.
I
And like
need
they'll come
all
into
the
your
information
house.
about that.
Yeah,
That's
like they
fantastic.
do not care. Yeah, they don't respect boundaries. They are not good guests. And one of the most popular stories is basically about them invading this family's home every year at Christmas time and taking it over, and the family having to leave. And that actually is what put me in mind of
I mean,
Strieber's
that's just Christmas.
encounter. Yeah, like when I was researching this stuff, because I was thinking about how he described it, and like it's sort of starting with this whooshing noise all throughout his house and all of the weird little disturbances, culminating in this home invasion by these diminutive. And I was like, man, what does that sound like? What does that remind you of? All of these weird stories, these like some of these variations of the wild hunt that are basically just home invasions. And so yeah, there's all of these weird sort of commonalities and parallels between this stuff.
So, what you're saying is it's all aliens, and it always has been, right?
I mean,
Right? Right?
maybe
No, that's
that's
what you
well,
said.
that's
No, you said that.
It
That's
sounds
fine.
like the old gods.
that's kind of the whole point, though, right? Like
Yeah.
it's whatever narrative you want. I mean, and I even mentioned this because I don't like the idea. Well, I should say, it's so common today for people to think that we have it all figured out, right? Like everybody in the past is a bunch of idiots who believed in
Hmm.
a bunch of stupid crap, and we have it right. Like, so if we're looking at UFOs, we're going, oh, those are extraterrestrials from another planet, because look how smart we are with science. We know that, like they might have thought they were fairies a few hundred years ago, but those people were idiots, right? Like we
Totally.
have it figured out.
Yeah.
But we're also very stupid, and so
How
we
dare
don't
you?
have it figured out. We don't know that any more than our distant ancestors knew that it was Odin leading the wild hunt. These are
Right.
just narratives that we apply to things that we don't understand, and it makes us feel better. It makes us feel like maybe we know something about it, kind of takes some of its power away, makes it a little less frightening. But at the end of the day, we have no idea. So if it's comforting to call them aliens, fine. But fundamentally, it just represents a completely mysterious phenomenon that could be any number of things.
I love that. I love that it could be anything and we're all just idiots. Like we're just guessing. I mean, honestly, you can say you know what it is, but you don't know what it is. Come on.
I have going way, way back. So Whitley Strieber, you kept saying his first like remembered experience. Did we find out later that there were a bunch more earlier? Like,
Yeah, he
or
had gone through. Yeah, he had gone through some therapy and done some hypnotic regression, and I have opinions on that in terms of its efficacy, right? But yeah, it had sort of come to light through that that he had other experiences earlier in life.
okay. Because I was like, why do we keep qualifying it? What happened? What's the story?
I like
Okay.
to be very precise when I
Yeah,
speak.
no, I was like, how big is this qualification there? That's it. That's all I have. I was like, there's more story to this story.
Well, you do go into several different accounts in the book of various sightings and things, which is interesting. I like the idea that everything can be tied together. I don't know if that's me just really wanting to find a pattern where there is none, but yeah, I was really fascinated by that for sure.
Well, there are definitely patterns, and that's something that we pay close attention to. We're looking for commonalities. Like on the subject of the wild hunt, right? In reading some of the folkloric accounts of the wild hunt, I was reminded of another phenomenon that we hear a lot about today, and that is UFO flaps, or encounters with mysterious lights. It occurred to me that there are quite a few sightings of mysterious balls of light,
Mhm.
and some people interpret their encounters with them as a sort of social interaction, as though these mystery lights even have their own intelligence. And
Oh,
I was reminded, of course, by the wild hunt, because something that occurred to me, like, let's say it's Yule, right? Like it's getting dark out at like 4:30 p.m. You're not going out that much. You guys are like, you're staying inside. You're sitting around the fire, and mostly what you're going to do is you're going to tell stories to entertain each other. And so those stories could be entirely made up. They could be based on your experiences. They could be based on things you've heard, but oftentimes stories have a purpose, right? They could be to reinforce, cultural taboos. They could act as warnings. They could be to try to explain a phenomenon. That's what mythology is, right? And so it occurred to me that if people had been seeing these for as long as I suspect, which would be basically forever, then it would be easy to interpret something like say a number of orange lights seen racing through a forest or something as the torches and lanterns of, say, a spectral wild hunt. And so these connections just keep popping up if you know where to look for them.
So basically, what you're saying is that it was Santa the whole time, if I'm
Yes. That's
hearing
what
this
I'm hearing.
correctly.
Kind of.
That all of this time,
I mean,
the lights, aliens, Santa, the wild hunt were all the same thing.
maybe
Santa is
actually,
our-
you know, if
Santa's an alien. All right, solved
Oh,
it. Mystery
that
over.
would make sense.
you,
That will
you,
take
you,
it
you have to look
everywhere.
at like who Santa is, right? Like there's no denying Saint Nicholas's role in the creation of Santa Claus. I mean, literally, Santa Claus comes from the Dutch for Saint Nicholas, right? But there are other influences, you know, and Odin is actually a pretty sizable one. Like think about it
Really?
in terms of what Santa Claus does every year, right? He travels all over. He brings presents to good kids. He brings coal to bad kids. So that's a level of dealing weal and woe that Saint Nicholas wasn't necessarily as much known for. And certainly the traveling all over the place through sort of supernatural means, that's much more Odin style. Santa has a sleigh pulled by 8 reindeer. Odin rode his 8-legged horse Sleipnir. There are a lot of bits from Odin's legend that have been folded into the Santa Claus legend. And so that's a connection right there. You know, the behavior of Santa Claus has enough similarities with the wild hunt, in fact, to have a strong connection to Odin, like 8 reindeer aside, you know.
The 8
So
legs.
I mean, it is
It's like a
that
spider.
that's what I'm saying. Eight reindeer,
Legs,
8
8
tiny
reindeer.
reindeer came from, Sleipnir and his 8 legs.
That's
I-
See, and I say
fascinating.
it's all the old gods. That's what it is.
I
Not
think
aliens,
you're blowing
it's the old
everybody's
gods.
mind right now because I mean everyone knows the pagan traditions and birth of Christmas, but I've never heard anything about Odin and Christmas, and it's
Yeah.
blowing my mind a little bit. Like, why would we even consider that? It's great.
Yeah.
Tell me
it's-
more.
Yeah, same, absolutely. You hear about all of the pagan things being sort of taken over into Christianity, like when they're sort of reframing all of these stories. But Santa and Odin was not something that I saw coming.
And
Do
a
tell.
Well,
spider
I mean,
horde?
it's
What?
yeah, I mean, this is something that was pretty early on, actually, in the conversion of like northwestern European peoples, like these Germanic tribes to Christianity. Yeah, well, there are a couple of things at play, I think, when people think about pagan traditions in the modern day. There is sort of the neo-pagan misconceptions. A lot of that sort of built off of like Margaret Murray, who was a 19th century Egyptologist who got like basically everything wrong about European history. And then there's like what actually happened. And so there are some things that we know happened. Like for instance, Yule, as far as we know, and keeping in mind that like Germanic tribes were terrible about keeping written records, they basically didn't keep any, and so you had like almost everything we know comes from either like Christian monks or Roman historians, right? And so as far as we can tell, Yule was probably traditionally celebrated sometime in January, so not even on Christmas. As far as we know, the reason that we celebrate Christmas on the 25th was because of the Roman Empire converting to Christianity and replacing Saturnalia with the celebration of the birth of Christ. And then there was a Norwegian king who some like centuries later decided that all of his subjects, who were largely pagan at that time, but he wanted to convert to Christianity, needed to start celebrating Yule on Christmas. And so that was one of the early instances of folding these pagan traditions into the traditional Christmas celebration, right? And so in doing that, you are including all of the traditional Yuletide stories that people would have been telling at that time. So people would still want to talk about the wild hunt and its many and varied iterations. They would still want to talk about like Grula and the Yule lads and the Yule cat and all of
Yes.
this other weird stuff, Yule
Wear new
goats and
clothes and
whatnot.
we'll eat you. Yes.
Right. Exactly. So like that stuff didn't start out as Christmas themed. It just became that way because these celebrations were combined. And so these traditional stories that were normally told that like during this time of year became associated with Christmas over I would suppose generations of just repetition and storytelling.
Now, you do have a segment, it's like a TV thing, a section in the book about the Victorian ghost stories. And I was curious
Mhm.
about those, first of all, because you mentioned, the tradition sort of storytelling, and especially in the cold, and what else would you do when sitting around a Victorian manor? I'm assuming you would just tell ghost stories. But I was wondering if you had any favorites in those, and you could recount any of those guys.
Well, Victorian like Christmas ghost stories are always interesting because it always seemed to me that that tradition arose directly out of the traditional connotations of this time of year with spirits of the dead and fairies and that kind of thing. Um, and so it was, yeah, it's interesting for me to see something like that continuing even as recently as the 19th century. In terms of favorite Victorian ghost stories, boy, I mean probably the one that I put in here, because it is such a sort of classic ghost story. Like literally it's about a guy who helps get this murderer put away. Well, he's just a crappy defense attorney basically, and his client gets it's true, and his client gets like convicted of murder and sent to prison, and he's like out the door. He's like, oh man, oh no, you're going to prison, probably be executed, who knows. Well, anyway, I'm going to go on vacation because it's Christmas, and he wants to go skiing.
Sure.
And and so he goes to his boss and he's like, hey, do you have some luggage I can borrow? Because apparently he doesn't get paid enough to own his own luggage.
Because he's not
And his
winning
boss
cases.
is like, yes. Right? Yeah, he's too obsessed with going on vacation constantly. And so his boss is like, oh, yeah, hell yeah. Here you go. I have some luggage that you can borrow. No problem. And he accidentally gives him the murderer's luggage. So then, like, the murderer comes back to claim his luggage as a ghost. Right.
Did he leave
That's my
something
favorite
behind, or is
luggage.
it just a luggage thing? It was personalized. He's here for his monogram. Or was the knife
I'm
in
trying to
there?
remember.
It was real leather.
No, I want to say it was. It might have been even more morbid than that. I want to say it like he put the body of the victim in it or something at one point.
Oh my.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, good. At least it's good.
it's real messed up.
Like
Solid
Yeah.
luggage, is that what you're saying?
it's solid luggage. It's quality.
yeah.
It held the body, but also there's a reason that he would want it back because he felt a connection to it. It was important for
It
holding
has
the body.
sentimental value.
And it was
really,
quality.
it was big enough for a whole body. I'd
And you
come
don't
back.
give up on quality.
No.
Yeah, I'd be back for that.
That's old world craftsmanship.
Uh-huh.
You don't see that anymore.
I bet it didn't even leak. It was so high quality.
Right.
Oh, leaking.
See?
Mm.
Come on.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned right before you started talking about that, the ghost stories in connection with the fae and the fairies. Explain that
Yes.
connection, because that is not one that I would have made either.
Sure. So that's as old as fairy tales, really. People have, well, let's see, where to really begin with this. Well, okay. So fairies basically was a catch-all term for damn near anything people just straight up didn't understand. So you
Kind of
can
is now
find
too.
in like you can find in fairy lore phenomena that mirrors a number of different categories of paranormal phenomena, right? Like everything from mystery lights to ghosts and hauntings kind of stuff to poltergeists,
To autism.
to really like alien abduction, like all kinds of weird stuff, all kind of got folded into fairy lore because that's just sort of what people would use to explain everything that they didn't really understand. And so one of the many explanations that people came up with regarding what fairies were the spirits of the dead. And so you find that in a number of different fairies. Probably, well, one of the most appropriate for this time of year would be a Nissa, right? So they are these patriarchal, well, they started as patriarchal ancestor spirits that would be attached to specific homesteads, right? So, like, let's say your family had lived on this homestead for generations at this point, and you had this helpful, household fairy. You might have thought of it as a long dead ancestor, and maybe it was. I have no idea, but there's always been this strong connection
Hold up.
between fairies
What
and
is
the
helpful? What does
dead.
helpful mean? What is this? What is this thing doing that is helpful to the family?
Sure. Well, if you are nice to your Nissa,
Yeah.
he might help you thresh your wheat. He could help take care of your livestock. I trying to think. Those are the big two, which is helpful
That's
enough,
very
frankly.
Yeah,
helpful.
very
That's
helpful. But how?
huge.
But
If
these
he's
families have this spirit, fairy, whatever, and stuff gets done, and it just happens, and they're like, "Oh, it's the fairy. It's fine."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
sure.
Is that
Alright.
not how it works at
That
your
is what
house?
they did
No,
then.
usually I do everything,
'Cause-
but that's fine. I'm just
No, that's how it
questioning
works. You
That's
leave
okay.
out some
I don't-
milk
That's fine.
and
I
then
just-
like an assortment of pastries, and
Oh,
then
I don't get
in the
that.
morning
I don't
things
get
are
it.
done. Does that?
Yeah.
No one else
don't-
works like that?
I don't-
'Cause,
They finish
know
sewing
that.
your things. They
I
take
know
care of the
that's me.
basics.
boy,
I
I tell
do
you,
all
my
of that.
socks are darned impeccably.
How nice
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah.
Because you're good
It's
to
just
your
the
Nissa.
pastry, man.
You're good to them.
All right, I'm sorry to
Mhm.
interrupt. I just was confused because
Clearly.
it seems like you. Yes, always. But it seemed like it was just like a matter of fact. Stuff gets done, and it's that guy that we don't know what it is. It's fine, and that's confusing to me because that's not what happens in my house. So I'm sorry. Continue.
It's not what happens in anybody's house. It's just a story that
Oh,
that
okay.
that people came up with, but they would describe these beings as looking like wizened old men, and then the early narrative applied to that was that they were ancestral spirits or something. I think it's interesting when you look at some of the descriptions of, say, saucer occupants or otherworldly home invaders and things of that nature, because sometimes you do get people describing not just grays but like short stocky characters that might almost fit that description
Can I
of
ask a question real
in a
quick?
certain light.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
don't mean to interrupt, but is
No, it's good.
is saucer occupant like the politically correct term for alien now? I've never heard saucer occupant before, and that was really funny to me. I'm sorry.
I like saucer occupant more than
So do we.
alien. Okay, thank you. Because
Alien
it's
invader.
it's it's just it's so accurate. Like we don't know that they're aliens, but if they're coming out of a flying saucer, then saucer occupant seems very apropos.
You
I
know,
mean, what if
You
a
know?
human is spending time with the extraterrestrials? They are
They've
occupying
been
the saucer
invited.
now.
Right.
Well,
They're
and
alien invited
Kira,
and they're
yeah.
saucer occupants.
Kara came up with the term alien invited
Didn't
because
he?
most
Or did I?
I don't know. It was at some
I
point.
thought it was Tobias, or maybe it was our joint venture.
I believe it was a joint venture, if anything. On the first episode, where, yes, people who go with the aliens very willingly are alien invited. So saucer occupant makes sense.
It doesn't always have to be an abduction.
No, sometimes
Alien
it's an
invited.
invitation.
Digress. I'm sorry, I could not get past saucer occupant, so thank you.
But
for
this is a
divulging
great
me in
time
that.
to take a break, though,
Thank you,
as we
Kara.
reflect
Nicely
on
done.
saucer occupants
Take a
who
real
are
quick
alien
break.
invited.
And we're back. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, that was a good time.
Yeah, it was so that ad. How amazing was that ad? Apologies, Tobias. I totally interrupted you because of my unwillingness to get past that term. But now I've done that.
No.
So please continue.
That was fine. I think I was done. I don't
Oh,
even
sorry.
remember.
Yeah, who cares? Doesn't matter.
So you have a whole book about Yuletide strangeness. This time of year, we're all talking about one character in particular, and I'm not gonna ask him about him. What is your favorite Yuletide strangeness?
Oh boy.
Ooh.
There's so many.
It doesn't mean you
I've already-
don't like another one, but just like
Right.
They're all
Well,
great. We all know that.
Right. Like my personal favorite, I mean, has got to be Wild Hunts. Just because it has so much in common with UFO lore and alien abduction lore. Not so many alien invitations in this one. No, it's pretty one-sided, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, because it gets even weirder than what I was talking about. Because you've got like Frau Perkta, which is another popular character, and she kind of leads her own wild hunt. But her wild hunt is like just the ghosts of dead kids.
A little bit more depressing.
Right.
or is it more
Yeah.
creepy?
Seriously,
Well,
it's terrible.
Both.
Yeah, like Merry Freaking
Creepy.
Christmas, right? Like
And then
here's
they
Frau
giggle.
Perkta and her-
Running through the woods, all
Thank
these
you.
dead ghost kids giggling.
right.
No,
That's who
thank
I'm
you.
avoiding.
I don't know anything about this Frau. Please elaborate. Please.
Well, she is another one of those capricious at best sorts of holiday figures. So she's known for, in addition to leading, troops of dead kids, taking a special interest in how you take care of your house. And so, like, if you're not taking care of your house, yeah, we're all screwed, right? And
I
if
have
you're not
dogs.
taking care of your house,
We all
right?
let her go. Ooh. Yikes.
If you're not taking care of your house up to her standards, she will go bananas and like literally like eviscerate you and like take your intestines out and then stuff you full of straw.
That
she
seems like a
gets
overreaction.
I don't know.
But then who's going
It
to take
is
care
an
of my
extreme
dogs that
overreaction.
made it a mess in the first place? She's not thinking ahead.
They're wild now. It's fine. They can live off the land.
They
don't
joined the
think they
wild
can.
hunt, I feel
They
like.
did.
Right? The dead children take care of them.
Sure. It can be whatever you want.
They probably like the walks with the kids. Thank God for them because
Seriously.
bet.
And the
they're
kids
going
are
to get
happy.
lonely
They're
and
laughing.
sad.
Yeah.
Their black eyes are smiling.
Yeah, thank for it.
But yeah, that's pretty much her whole deal. So I would avoid her, I guess.
Yeah.
If
Thank
at all
you for
possible.
that tip.
I'm
What
not
was her
gonna be
name?
safe
Frau
with her.
what?
No problem.
Now, in these tales, was
Frau
there a
Perkta.
way?
Perkta.
Was there a way to prevent encounter besides actually cleaning your house or doing whatever household chore you were supposed to be doing?
Because I'm not doing
Besides that, was there a way to protect your house, and can we do it now?
Oh, sure. There were a number of traditional, means to protect yourself from evil spirits and fairies and the risen dead and all of that fun stuff. It's pretty much what you would expect if you're familiar with fairy lore. People made a lot of use of iron objects. You can hang an iron horseshoe over your door, or put a pair of scissors open under your pillow or something. And that's supposed to ward off that kind of thing. There's a reason that bonfires were so popular, and still are. This time of year too, like it's not just for providing warmth; it's providing illumination, sort of pushing back the darkness. But yeah, like there are a number of folk traditions like that. The easiest way and the most reliable way was always to placate these beings. So just give them what they want. So if Frau Perkta wants your house clean, just clean your house.
That's
Like
a lot
just
of
clean your
work,
house
though.
and it's fine.
Have you
I
seen
hear
my
you.
house? It's
I don't
like
know.
too
I
much.
have not.
I don't even own a vacuum anymore. It's too
Evisceration might be
much.
easier.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
Yeah. And the fire, we could provide delicious s'mores with the
Yes.
fires that we've made outside to ward them off.
Or
We offer
whatever.
them s'mores. No cleaning necessary. Are there any more that are specific to the season? Like, I don't know, the idea of mistletoe or the idea of like evergreens or anything like that. Is there any sort of tie-in with any of those other sort of classic holiday symbols?
Well, I mean, the mistletoe is taken directly from Norse mythology, and its importance in that.
What's
And
going on with the Norse? I had no idea that the Norse had all this mythology around Christmas time. No
This
idea.
is a cool story, though.
They're so
I'd love to
Christmassy.
know.
The mistletoe
Please
story is
tell me
really cool.
more.
It's really
is.
cool.
Apologies. Please continue.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head. Basically, long story short, it's I think mistletoe was the one thing that could kill Balder the Beautiful, unfortunately, and so it did.
Oh. So
And
we
it's
all
been
make out
important
under
ever
it.
since.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you should do when
Well,
someone's murdered.
From what I remember, his mother had forbidden anyone to bring harm to him, bodily harm,
Right.
right? And it's poisonous. So some other evil god or fairy or whatever convinced another sort of magician or something to feed it to him, right?
Honestly, to get it 100% correct, I would have to grab one of these books behind me and look it up, because I don't remember off the top of my head well enough,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
don't do that. That's gross.
Well, I know at the end of it, the reason that we get the more modern concept of mistletoe is that the queen his mother was furious, and all of the people of the land were very upset and cried and poured their love into mistletoe. And so furthermore, mistletoe should only be used as a sign of love, hence the kissing.
Oh.
Right.
Oh.
So
Well told.
that's it was terribly told, but
All without a book behind
the
you.
point, the point
got
is we
it.
got there.
You got it.
Ew.
So outside of the mistletoe, just the pretty traditional ways of keeping fairies and other dark things at bay is basically what we're saying.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I said, like there are wards and things that people would use, but in my personal opinion, I think that placating them is the way to go. Like Nissa, for instance, around this time of year, you would want to leave some porridge out. Like they like
Everybody
porridge, so
loves
just
porridge.
right. I had porridge
Delicious.
this morning.
Come on.
It's
So
just
good.
oatmeal. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
But,
is it oatmeal? Is it grits?
Boring
What is
and
it?
gross.
Just
Right.
oatmeal.
That texture, can't get enough of it. No.
Oatmeal's delightful, so I get that.
I too love oatmeal. I'm just cutting
Yeah.
out the carbs, so I'll leave it for the Nissa. When we say this season, like the Yuletide season, when does that start? When do we have to start leaving the oatmeal out? When do we have to really panic about cleaning our house? When does this become important business?
Good questions. It depends on, I guess, who you are and what era you're living in.
Okay.
Okay, us right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, with Yule having been moved to align more with Christmas, I would say probably start somewhere around the solstice, like maybe just on the solstice, or if you're really motivated, just maybe the day before, just to be safe. And then you're going to want to go all the way through New Year's.
Oh, I really thought you were going to stay with the approaching of like St. Nick's Day and then all the way to the Epiphany. So this really, you gave us a nice tight range and I appreciate
It's
it.
like a week.
Yeah, I cut it down quite a bit. Now, yeah, if you want to deal with Krampus and all of that, then yes, then you got to go all the way back to the very beginning of the month. But I feel like you kind of age out of having to worry about Krampus.
Hey, my kids are big, so like I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Listen,
Like-
I don't know about you guys, but somebody like Krampus, with an expandable sack, I feel like you should be afraid at all ages.
You heard it here. Jenny does not like expandable sacks.
I do not.
Again,
Firm line.
all you have to do, just don't be on the naughty list. Like that's all you got to do.
I mean, what's okay?
Fantastic.
He's not coming for the good kids.
What's naughty, though?
Yeah, that's what I'm
really?
saying. What's the end goal here? Like what gets you on the naughty list? Are we saying like, I'm not gonna do my chores because I'm not doing that regardless? But like, am I like beating people? I'm not beating people, but I'm not doing my chores. Like,
Well,
what
you're
is
kinda-
the naughty list?
Yeah, you're kind of screwed then anyway, just based on everybody else who's real pissed off about a dirty house. So I don't know why you'd even be worried about Krampus at that
Yeah.
point.
But well, he's the first one, so it's like once you go past him, then you have to deal with all the people who are mad that your house is dirty. So I'm
It's
like,
all of them.
how?
Are they all mad about the dirty house or just Frau
Like pretty much.
whatever?
Well,
Oh,
Yule Cat's mad about your not wearing new clothes that you got.
Right.
yeah.
It's
That's another
because you're
thing.
lazy.
Christmas.
Because if you don't partake in the wool harvest, then you don't get a nice new wool sweater for Christmas, and then that's how
Oh.
Yule Cat knows to eat you because you're lazy.
Okay, that actually gives some substance to it because I was like,
What if my husband has
new clothes.
horrible taste and gives me a terrible sweater that I don't want to wear? I still have to wear this sweater just to appease the Yule Cat?
Yes.
To avoid certain
Yeah.
death.
Yes.
Ugh.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
sweaters I
We
would
all
wear
have
to
to make
avoid certain
choices.
death.
I mean, there are choices and there are choices. Come on, you guys. Like,
I think you're really looking for a lot of loopholes here. I mean, we're
that is
giving
all I do,
pretty
Jenny.
strict
loopholes.
rules, and you're just sort of,
Can
whatever.
I have the loophole?
All
Because
I'm
this
saying is,
all-
if you happen to disappear this Christmas, I will understand.
Compliance
Just
is
chicken camping.
necessary.
Hmm.
Or what? What do the Borg say?
the Borgs.
The
Resistance
Borg.
is futile.
Resistance is futile. I was like,
Yes,
it's not
you will be
compliance is
assimilated.
necessary. I knew that.
but I
it
like that a
really-
little bit better.
It really connected me to the Borg. And resistance is also futile. You can't resist the cat.
Nope.
Put on the sweater, no matter what it looks like. Resistance
The
is futile.
community.
Or
I
you
love being part of
die.
a community.
So
Well,
don't
you
resist the
don't. You
Borg
just
or
are
the
part
cat.
of a- All right, we can talk.
Well,
about
these are all interesting examples of what I was talking about before. I mean, there's no objective truth to, clean your house or you're going to be eviscerated, or participate in the wool harvest, or you'll be eaten. They're just fascinating examples of of stories that may have been inspired by external phenomena, being folded into a culture and then used to reinforce cultural standards, right? Where they're like, okay, using the Yule cat as an example. So in the British Isles, right, there are stories of out of place, like big black cats going back, hundreds and hundreds of years, and they've been trading with Iceland for hundreds of years at this point. And so I think, as we all know, wherever humanity goes, our stories follow. And so while they don't have a strict tradition of out of place big cats in Iceland specifically, they've certainly been interacting with people who have. And so it makes me wonder if there isn't, again, like some external source to these stories. Like, they've been hearing about these dangerous, big black cats, that some of which have supernatural aspects or qualities, and that sort of grew over time. Well, literally and figuratively, because the Yule cat's supposed to be as like big as a house now,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And then people started adding stuff onto it, like, oh boy, you better participate in the wool harvest, or Yule cat's gonna eat you.
Can I ask
It's just fascinating because, yeah, go ahead.
about the black cat in the UK? It's like a cryptid or whatever, and it always, to me, seemed like who cares? Like somebody lost a cat. I don't.
But they're big.
Yeah, I get it. Someone had an exotic cat and lost it. I get it. Uh, what's the deal? Why is this such a huge thing in the UK that there's a roaming black panther or whatever it is?
Because they don't have like mountain lions,
Sure.
like
I didn't
things
ask
like
you.
that. All right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I that is a fair question, and it's one that I've asked myself too, because I tend to gravitate towards stuff that's a lot weirder than, say, anomalous big cats. But they're interesting in that, if that was the case, and it has happened. I think it was in Scotland where somebody actually did recover in exotic pet. But if that was the case, given the number of sightings and the history of these sightings, I mean, they go back hundreds and hundreds of years, then one would expect, well, I guess, first of all, historically, there wouldn't have been these exotic pets, right? So, like, the story had to start somewhere, and it wasn't with exotic pets. That could be in explanation today, but it doesn't make sense for the actual advent of these stories, right? And then, even if it was that, given the number of sightings, we should be finding more. And so there's a couple different things that could be going on here. Either there is this population of big black cats that are just living under the radar in England, which is not that big of a place, and managing to go undiscovered for all of this time, or they are just stories that people are telling, and so you've got misidentifications and outright hoaxes or delusions or hallucinations to explain people who actually believe that they've had an authentic experience. Or there's the third option, which is even weirder, and that encompasses all of the various sort of high strangeness explanations that could account for something like that, up to and including glimpses into parallel universes or time slips, or even weird shape-shifting things. I received a report from somebody out of, I want to say, Indiana a few years ago, about seeing this thing that he said looked like a shadow man that transformed into a huge black cat. And I was like, well, if all he saw was the thing post transformation, if all he saw was this big black cat,
Yeah.
well, that's like 90% of these sightings.
Right.
Like this could be in any number of sightings that people would sort of write off as prosaic. So who knows? Like I in reading about them and learning about them and getting reports from other people, they get a lot weirder
Tell
than
me the
than
weird.
is apparent.
What's the like? Okay, like sure. This cat shouldn't be here. What's the weird stuff with this cat? Is that what I'm asking?
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
No, not to
Big
me. I
cat?
don't care about cats. That's weird. It's
It's
fine.
loosely connected to the
I,
Yule cat, so it gets bigger sometimes.
I don't
And
know
then
what's
eats
natural
you
to the
when you're
Angry about
lazy and not
crows?
wearing a new
But
sweater.
Like, okay, yes,
That's weird.
that's weird, but
Yeah.
kind of dumb. You mentioned magic stuff. What's the magic weird stuff? Maybe I said
With the
magic and
like
not you, but you said
I
right.
think
something
so.
weird happens with
Yeah.
the black cat. What's the like?
Well, it's the implications I think are what gets weird about it. Like I was saying, it's in a place like that, it is unlikely for a breeding population of normal, big black cats to be living without being discovered. And so, if you are willing to entertain that some of these witnesses are actually really seeing these big cats, then you have to start asking yourself, where where the hell do they come from, right? And there aren't a lot of good prosaic explanations that would allow for something like that to exist. So you can start to have a lot weirder speculations, which is sort of what I was talking about, where all of a sudden you've got these big black cats that would almost have to have supernatural attributes to be where they are and doing what they're doing, right? Which is what reminded me of the report that we had received um, a couple years ago about the supposed shape shifting being that turned into this weird shadow big black cat thing, which just got me thinking. Like again, if all this witness had seen was the thing after it had changed, then he just would have seen it. It would have been just another big black cat sighting, which happened here too. Actually, this isn't like a UK thing. It happens here. It happens in Australia,
Oh, I
New
had no
Zealand. I
idea.
know.
Those
Um,
countries seem like it would
so
be a
yeah,
little bit more usual to see something like that. I mean, we do have, you know, larger predators that could be mistaken for like a large black cat, some sort of predatory. Now, do they have Mothman sightings in Europe?
maybe. Um, and I say that well because there is the Owl Man of Cornwall, I think, in England, and so that's very similar to the Mothman. But then you get some stories of uh, dubious provenance, right? So, like the Blackbird of Chernobyl, which it's probably just taken straight out of the Mothman Prophecies
Uh-huh.
movie. Unfortunately, there's no good evidence that I've seen, and I'm open to being wrong. So if you've seen the Blackbird of Chernobyl, or you know someone who has seen the Blackbird of Chernobyl, you can email me at info@singularfortean.com. But
Please report.
I'm
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to hold my breath.
Now listen, I
So yeah, like
wanna
that. Mhm.
I wanna pose a theory to you. What if
Okay.
the big black cat is Europe's version of the Mothman?
Ooh, I like that a lot.
Benign and just people see it. That's it. Is that what
Just
you mean?
Yeah, just
And it's been
people
showing
see
up
it
for
and
a
it hangs
long
out.
time. And how do people feel? Do they feel like their life has changed after they see it?
Do they feel doom?
How do they feel?
We got
well,
you on that
Dean
one,
would be-
didn't we?
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm speechless.
You're right.
No, well, I don't think it occupies the same place as winged humanoid sightings culturally. It is missing a lot of the obvious sort of paranormal aspects, which is what I was getting at earlier, because most of these big cat sightings, they really do appear just to be normal big cat sightings. And what makes them not normal, of course, is where they're taking place. Whereas something like Mothman isn't normal anywhere.
Right.
There is no country you could be in where you should expect to see Mothman,
I think
where it is cataloged or in a zoo or anything.
I think you're closing your mind to my theory here. Is what I think is
Could you
happening.
explain it better?
Yes, it's a magical cat. Perhaps it's not an actual cat, but we did think, there was the report of the winged man turning into the cat, or vice versa. I'm just saying, he's in disguise. Maybe he just feels like being a cat.
Sure. No, that's literally one of the things I was trying to say as a possibility, not a winged humanoid specifically, but some kind of paranormal quality to explain their presence in these areas. So, you think of, well, like I said, you think of like parallel universes or time slips, or some other being, that is capable of appearing as these creatures. Who knows, really? I mean, it could be a lot of weird stuff, and I don't necessarily believe it, but I'm willing to entertain it, right? You kind of have to be willing to entertain it.
That's all I ask.
I think in your next book, when you really discuss this in depth, you have to have a little acknowledgement, and thank you to Jenny Monroe and Into the Obscure for this being a thing that I could write a whole book about, because she was totally right.
Yeah, and I entertain.
Yeah, no, I
theories,
mean, obviously.
so. Listen, I didn't say that my theory had any basis in any kind of reality whatsoever.
But it might be totally right. So I don't know. Acknowledgement in the book,
knows?
in the next book. There we go.
Fairies. Who knows?
But in the meantime,
Could be
read
aliens.
the
Who knows?
Singular Fortean's Guide to Yuletide High Strangeness before the next book about the connection to the cats and the Mothman.
Yeah,
right. I mean, there's got to be enough for like there's got to be enough material for a book in there somewhere.
Right.
Obviously.
I would assume. Right.
But
dear
as we
listeners, dear readers, I met this crazy woman. She had a crazy theory, and she made
now
all of
it's
us
a
listen to
whole
it. And now it's a
book.
whole
Right.
thing.
But also,
I mean, it's not so much a theory as like a thing you said, but
it's a
you can still get a book
unifying
out of it.
theory. It's a
It
unifying
is. It
theory
is.
of
That's the thing I
everything.
said.
But also, we are at the top of the hour
Oh, no.
already. So
Hey.
please, Tobias's Waylands, Tobias and Emily, please tell us all about the newest book, where people can find it, all the other books, and where to find you guys.
I feel like I just spoke for the whole hour, and Emily didn't say anything.
Emily.
Maybe. That
didn't
might
know
be
I
what happened,
interjected
but that's
myself.
okay.
Yeah. Or well, okay. Emily should tell everybody where to find our stuff.
Sure. So, obviously, the Singular Fortean Society can be found at singularfortean.com. We are on pretty much all the social media platforms, and our handle is at Singular Fortean. And when it's a book, you can find on Amazon. A copy signed by the author, you can go to singularfortean.com/books. And I know that we're approaching Christmas now as people are listening to it. It might not get there under your tree in time, but it will get soon for the holiday season if you would like to go that route.
Yeah, the 12 days of Christmas is after Christmas, is what I just learned. So just enjoy your book after.
And I do
And
want
the
to point out,
Yuletide season does
Yeah.
extend after Christmas. So
Exactly.
I do want to point out that the illustrations are all done by Emily, and I found them delightful. I always love a good illustration in a book. I won't even begin to talk about the binding because apparently that's not allowed.
No, it's weird.
Yeah,
No,
but also
it's-
do want to say
I'm
hello to
disappointed
everybody. I
didn't
know.
touch it. I didn't touch this book.
I do want to say hello to everybody in the comments. Thank you so much for watching and commenting. I'm bad at multitasking, so
Okay, cool.
that's
Hey,
my response to everybody.
Rate, review, subscribe on all the things. We have been Into the Obscure podcast, and we will see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks.